Hi, everybody. Welcome. We'll give it a couple minutes for people to join and then we'll get started. Hi, welcome. Welcome back. I remember you from, am I saying your name correctly? Is it Leonie? And Katarina, hi, from the community. Nice to see you guys here. Where are you both joining from? I'm not sure if I remember you from the Level Up event or if it's from a previous webinar, but I know those names. Oh, sorry, you can type that in the chat box. I just realized. If you want to tell me where you're joining from, you can type that in the chat box. And we'll give it just another second and then we'll get started. Fort Lauderdale, nice and warm. Jealous, there's snow outside where I am right now. Lovely. Thanks, thank you. From Germany, welcome. It's getting late for you. Thanks for joining. Alrighty, we will jump right into it. So I'm excited for this webinar. We're going to go over different tips, tricks, and different workarounds in Foyr Neo. So I'm going to just be sharing my screen with you and showing you a lot of the things that I go over with customers when we are in a masterclass. So some of these are existing tools within the software that maybe just aren't the most discoverable, but are really helpful to turn on or off or use in a specific way. And other things will be different textures that are in the catalog that people aren't readily aware of and how you can use that to customize different products. Okay, so that's me. Do be sure to check us out on Instagram. That's where a lot of the fun stuff happens. This is our website, and also check us out on the community. Katarina, I know you're already on the community. Leonie, I don't know if you are, but we'll type that in the chat box here for you to link you to the community wall where you can share all of your work. You can take online courses. You can find work. All sorts of fun stuff. Okay, so I'm just going to start and bring you straight to 2D mode of an existing project. Okay, so first thing, this comes up frequently. And there's a very easy fix for it. So the other day I was speaking with another designer and she said, I'm trying to get my curtains to kind of like line up flush with the curtain rod. I don't want it to be totally in front of the rod. I don't want it to be behind. I want it to kind of be running through it. And it keeps snapping back and forth and I can't place it. Like I don't have that minute control. You just need to turn object snapping off. So this is one of those tools that's available to you, but not necessarily the most discoverable. So if ever you find that you're working with furniture, it can be in 2D or in 3D mode, and it's kind of snapping back and forth, or maybe it's snapping to the wall and that's frustrating for you because it's not, you want to have full control. In 2D mode, go to this gear setting in the top right-hand corner, and then you're going to go down to object snapping, right? So this is meant as an aid and it does come in handy. Right now, we're going to turn it off so that we have full control just by clicking on that check mark and getting rid of it. So when having object snapping turned on becomes really useful is, let's say you have wall panels that you want to place on your wall and you have multiple that have to be placed side by side. Turning wall snapping back on will snap those seams into place so that there's no overlap and there's no gaps between the wall that will probably not be very visible to you in 3D, but when you take a render, it'll be like the only thing you can focus on, right? So that's when having object snapping turned on is really useful. Otherwise, typically when I enter a project, I turn it off and then I just turn it on when I need it. So that lives right here. And in Foyr Neo 2.0 that we're going to be releasing very soon, all of these tools will be available to you in 3D mode as well. Okay, so number one, turn object snapping off for full control over where you place all of your products. Number two, let's head into this bedroom. And I'm going to double click on this nightstand here. is the invisible material tool. So this is a really handy tool in your texture catalog. I'll show you what that looks like. Just go to the search bar, type in invisible material, and it's going to pop up here. It looks just like this. Save it to your shortlist for any project you're working on because you'll find a use for it. And a great example is this nightstand. So I'll show you what this originally looked like here. Let's pull it up. You know what? Actually, got a picture for you. So here we are. This is the original nightstand from the catalog. You can see I have different hardware here. I've changed the textures and materials, and I've also placed new hardware. And you can see here, I can't quite zoom in, but you can see here that these are not visible anymore. And that's because I used invisible material to customize this piece. So I'll show you how I did that. Let's drag and drop a new one. Here we are. So all I did was find that invisible material texture and I dragged and dropped it to the hardware specifically. This has so many different use cases. It can be a piece like this where you love the piece, but you hate the hardware. It can be kitchen cabinets. It could be a sofa in the catalog that you really like, but it has pillows on it and you don't like where those pillows are placed. Apply invisible material just to the pillows, and then you can place your own pillows over top. So when I applied that just now, you can still see the outline here in 3D mode, but from the picture that I showed you, once you actually render, that will not show. Okay, then I dragged and dropped some new textures from the texture catalogs, some different paint colors, and then I found holes in the catalog again that I preferred for this piece and just placed them and resized them. And that's how I got this new custom piece. I'm going to double click over here because you can see that this bed that I dragged and dropped from the catalog, you can see the outline. It came with pillows already placed. I did not want them, so I applied the invisible material, placed these, and again, when I pull up this over here, you can see that that pillow does not render at all, but rather the pillow that I placed myself. If you guys have any questions, I've been forgetting to say this on the webinar. So if you guys have any questions that you want me to go over, we will have a Q&A at the end and I'll answer your questions in real time. So just type those in the Q&A box on the bottom, like Zoom bar, toolbar. Okay, so let's see, layering textures. Let's work on these vases here. So one question that we get frequently is, maybe you're working in a bathroom or in a kitchen and certain tiling, you've uploaded a custom texture for tile, but that tile needs to be glossy. And when you render it, the glossy sheen is not coming through in the render. So one thing to know about Foyr Neo is that textures are actually layerable. So what you can do, and I'll use these vases as an example, we'll apply a glossy coat to this vase, and then we'll apply a matte coat to this, and I'll show you the render. In the texture catalog, just type in glossy, and you're going to use this white high glossy laminate. You're going to drag and drop it. You want to make sure that whatever glossy material or matte material that you're using as your base is neutral in color, right? We don't want to use this high glossy orange because because textures are layerable. If I were to place something light over top of that orange, the orange would show through, okay? So I'm going to place that, and then I'm going to go to my uploaded category here, and I'm just going to drag and drop the tile that I want to apply to this vase. And this is the same exact vase from the catalog. I just made one slightly smaller. So now we're telling the software, okay, we need it to be glossy. And then this is the material that I want to have that high gloss. Same for this. We'll go to our texture catalog. We'll type in matte. Find something with a nice matte finish. If you go to furniture, you'll find glossy wood, glossy colors, matte colors. I'm going to narrow my search here, and I'm going to apply this chalk matte finish. Drag and drop it. and then drag and drop my custom texture over top. Or you can apply a texture from the catalog. It doesn't have to be a custom texture. And there we go. I can hear my computer like whirring, like it's, the fan is really working right now. So sorry about that if there's a bit of a delay. So once you've done that, now when you take a render, you can see here that this is a nice matte finish. And then I have the sun kind of glowing here to show you the reflection, but we've got a nice little reflection for this glossy ceramic. All right, so textures are layerable. Keep that in mind, good and bad. So if you apply something very light over something very dark, and then you render it and it looks like grayish, I recommend, say it was this, place something white over top of this, and then place, you know, say you had like a cream color that you wanted to apply to these doors, place something white first that was matte, if that's the sheen that you wanted, and then place that cream over top. So you're kind of like cleaning the slate, and then whatever you apply over top will apply more true to color. Okay, so, setting consistent lighting. Alrighty, so sometimes designer will say to me, I have these lamps or maybe these wall sconces on the wall, and then my main lighting fixture up top here. But when I take a render, these lights have a white light, and then this light is like a warm yellow light, and I don't want them to be different. I want them all to be warm or all to be white. In the texture catalog, we have light, literal just light material. So if you type in light, click enter, first two options that pop up are perfect for this exact scenario. So we have low intensity white and then low intensity warm. All you're going to do is drag and drop to the light bulb. There we go. And then I'm going to do the same for these guys over here. Or vice versa, whatever you need it to be. We have tons of neon lights, not as applicable, but they are here. And that's how you make that consistent. For something like a, let's look up a table lamp. Depending on, so something with a shade, right? Depending on the product itself, you have some different workarounds. So if it's a shade that's like very light, maybe it's white or it's cream, you can apply the white or yellow light directly to the shade. And it's in 3D mode, it's going to, you know, look like this. It's going to be very vibrant. But when you render, it's just going to look like the lights are turned on. Okay. The only time I wouldn't do that is if you have something dark like this, right? Because that's changing the actual appearance of the light itself. So let's drag and drop this one. I haven't tried this, but this particular product, but let's take a look. I'm going to double click. Right. And then I'm just going to angle my screen so that I'm looking up at the inside. Sometimes you will find a light bulb here. Other times you won't. But typically this plane, the black, and this inner plane are separate, and you can manipulate them separately. Let's see how this goes. So if I drag and drop to the inside here, there we go. Now when I render this, it'll just look like this lamp is turned on and it has a warm yellow light emitting from it. Another thing to check out if maybe you take a render and it looks like one of your products, one of your light products just doesn't have any light emitting from it, and you're like, why is that happening? You can always add light in this way to brighten up the space. Okay. Delete that. I made a list for myself because I can't remember anything. Okay, next is horizontal and vertical flip. This is one of my favorite tools in the catalog that I feel like doesn't get used as frequently as it should in place of the rotation tool. So crown molding is a perfect example of this. When I'm placing crown molding, I'll drag and drop one to, say, this wall and one here, and that's it. I'm not going to clone this and then work it over to the side wall here and rotate it. I'm simply going to clone the opposite wall. All right, say I need to place crown molding over here. I'm going to clone the opposite wall, bring it on over, and work it into place. And then let me zoom in. Then I'm just going to go to edit, and rather than rotating this 180 degrees, I'm just going to click on vertical flip, which is right here. So I selected edit, went down to flip here, and you'll see there's horizontal, which is going to go side to side, and then vertical, which is front to back. Click on vertical, and now it's flipped 180 degrees for me. Now I can just tuck it in. I don't have to resize it. I don't have to worry about rotating it perfectly and then being off and having it like look kind of wonky. The same for this side. So I would place one here, clone it, bring it on over to this side, and then do a vertical flip. This has a lot of different applications. If I like this door, but the door handle is on the wrong side, if you like the handle itself and you want to keep that, just do a horizontal flip. If the door needs to open, so say you have an open door from the catalog and the door is opening into a room and you need to have it pulled out, you would just do a vertical flip. That'll flip the door around. Of course, if you love the door but hate the hardware, you can apply invisible material to this and then find your own hardware in the catalog. Alrighty, let's see. Oh, custom environments. Okay, this is fun. We're going to go into 2D mode. So in render mode, we have a number of different environments for you to work with, but let's say none of those are really driving for you, or maybe you have a space like this. I found this little guy on Google, this beautiful yard. You could take a photo, just make sure it's a high resolution photo of your client's backyard or whatever their view happens to be, if you want to make it very custom, or if it's just something that nothing in the existing environments we have in the render, in render mode, like none of them are really working or matching. You can take a photo, or you can simply find something on Google, save it to your computer as an image file, which is what I did here. And then you're going to upload it as a custom texture. So go here, go to uploaded. It's just going to bring up your folder and then find that there. Next thing that you're going to do is go into 2D mode. And we're going to create this custom environment outside these windows here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw a wall pretty close to this existing wall. And it's going to have little legs. So you'll see I've left a bit of a gap. Let me draw this first and then I'll show you what I mean. There we go. Okay, so I've drawn this wall. I've added little legs here, but they're not touching. And the reason you don't want them to be touching these corners is because once we join these walls, it's going to create a floor for us, right? When we don't have joined walls like this, when we go into 3D mode, this wall is just kind of floating in outer space. There's no floor. And in this particular instance, we don't want a floor to work off of. We just want this area here. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly click on this baseboard and just delete it. It shouldn't show up in my render because of where my windows are placed, but just in case, you can always delete those, okay? Next thing that we're going to do is now drag and drop that custom environment that we uploaded as a custom texture to this wall. And you probably see where I'm going with this. These little legs that we created on the side are to make up for the light that we're now blocking from the sun being able to kind of enter the space in render mode. So again, we're going to go to our texture catalog, look for light, and apply whatever light you want. If you're going for warm, if you're going for bright, whatever it may be, and you're just going to apply it to this little area here. And you still will get some sunlight coming in through these corners as well that you've left open. Now, when we go into render mode, I'll show you what this looks like. So the reason that we want it to be pretty close to that wall is because if you go too far, you'll see the wall kind of floating in outer space, right? You're going to see that gap at the bottom. So that's why you want to keep it close. And here we are. Now we have that yard outside this window. If I angle it this way or angle it this way, you can't see because I've purposely gone beyond the border of these windows so that I can work at different angles and you're not like seeing this lit wall or seeing the default environment, right? You're just seeing this. And I'll show you what this looks like rendered. Here we go. That grass is very green, but this is a great example. We got our little stop sign out there, and you would never know that it wasn't, you know, one of the environments from render mode, and a bit more custom. Alrighty, what's next? Okay, last two things we're going to go over before I get into the Q&A are geometrics in 3D mode and upcycling products. So this is another little fun trick. So first of all, let's rotate over here. I'm going to double click. Geometrics is a category in the catalog, in the product catalog. When you type that in, you'll see here, you can narrow your search. It's just going to bring up a number of different shapes that dock to either the floor, the wall, or the ceiling. Some will be hollow, some will be solid. And these are fantastic because you can manipulate these in size, right? And apply any texture to it to create something entirely new. So one thing that's really popular lately for certain design styles is this kind of look, right? We've got this little rainbow, we've got some geometric walls that are maybe murals or they're painted, right? So you can create this effect by using geometrics. I'll show you how to do that in 1 second. But also, just so you know, this is a hexagon that I dragged and dropped to the wall. You can bring this depth down to 0. So for any time you're working with a shape, know that you can click on edit. Right now it's length. One little tip, in Foyr, length is always referring to depth. So if this were a sofa, length is referring to the seat depth, and then the width is referring to the longest part of the sofa. Maybe a little confusing, but you can bring this 2 inches all the way down to 0. It will not disappear. It will simply sit flush with the wall. So if you're trying to create something that looks like a painted wall like this, you would bring it all the way down to 0. This also applies if you're doing like backsplash in a kitchen or a bathroom and you don't want like a 1-inch thick backsplash, just bring it on down to 0. You won't lose sight of it. Okay, so I brought this hexagon into onto the wall, brought it down to 0, and then I went into my texture catalog and I applied a mirror texture, which is under glass. You can look up mirrored, and created little hexagon mirrors for here. And then this is a wall docked cube. Right, so yet another geometric that I simply resized and applied a paint color to create a little floating shelf. Lastly, I wanted a little decorative bowl. So I grabbed a hollow hemisphere, wall docked, just rotated it and then resized it and applied a new texture. So lots of different applications for these. There's tons of applications for the ceiling. So say this bedroom had, you know, this ceiling height, but then here in this little closet area, the ceiling came down lower. What you would do is go to your catalog, find a ceiling docked cube, or just search geometrics and you can find it that way too. Drag and drop it. And then you would resize it. So it's 2 by 2 by 2 feet. Let's say we needed it to come down 2 feet. I would simply resize this over the entire ceiling and create like a faux ceiling. So you don't have to worry about manipulating ceiling height in 2D mode. And you can apply any ceiling paint to this cube. Just know that it'll apply it to the entire cube. And then you just dock your lighting, if you have any, to the cube itself rather than the ceiling. If it docks to the ceiling, just throw it into free movement and bring it on down. Right, so free movement, and then you can bring things down from the ceiling. This is also how you create slanted ceilings. It's using geometrics. So if you're working in like an attic space, you've got that slant, you're gonna draw out your walls as you normally would in 2D. And then you'll find a ceiling docked triangle. So let me just be more specific. Search forever. And then you're simply going to resize it across the space. So I'm going to use this little right triangle here. Drag and drop it. Tuck this in. And I'll just use this short wall as an example for time's sake, but I'm just going to resize it across the space. Tuck it into that wall. And now I can apply any paint color. You see how you still see that seam? Don't be afraid to just work it right into the thickness of that wall so that it's seamless. There we go. And work it right up into the ceiling so that none of those seams show. Now you have a slanted ceiling, all from using Geometries, okay? Real quick, what I used, or what I would use to get this kind of rainbow effect on this, I'll show you what that is. I don't wanna go too long and not get to your questions. So this little guy, just dragged and dropped and resized and then applied a texture for this. And then I use this little rainbow guy, semi-cylinder, not a rainbow guy, but you know what I mean. We have wall, floor, and ceiling docked, and simply resized this down. If it gives you a limit on the resize down to say 1 inch, sometimes it's 3, just again, click on edit real quick and set that to 0. Oops. There we go. Now you can work this right up against the wall and resize it and apply textures as needed. Just know that if you were to clone this, it would clone all of the textures. So I can resize a clone independent of another, of the original. But if I drag and drop, say, blue to this one, the blue will apply to everything, to each item that I've cloned. So if these were all going to be the same color, like this, I would simply, make one flat, resize it, and then I would clone it repeatedly. But if I needed each one to be a different color, I would drag and drop a new shape and resize it separately so that I could apply different textures. Alrighty, very last thing that I want to recommend to you guys is to just think outside the box. One of the things about Foyr that's nice is you can create the appearance of pretty much anything. You don't need to actually create the actuality of it. So sometimes when designers are coming in from using other software that are maybe very literal in their application, it's kind of a jolt to work in Foyr. But one thing I've learned, and I'll give you just an example here, is that if something has the shape of the thing that you want, but isn't the thing that you want, still use it, right? So let's say we want like a little outside environment and we have some grass and we want to have like a little pond that like insets into the ground. I'll show you what I would do to quickly create that look. Let's grab a floor docked cube. I'll resize this. Bring my height down to 0. And for time's sake, I'm just going to keep it in the front here. There we go. Okay, I can go into my texture catalog, go to other, which is where all of my ground coverings, kind of environment, outdoor textures live. Maybe I want this to be sand. It can be anything, sand, grass, doesn't matter. Drag and drop it. And now I want a little pond. I don't want it to be this perfect circle from something like a geometric. I certainly don't want it to be a hexagon. That's not the most natural looking. But what I found in the catalog was this rug that is just kind of curvy, irregular shape, right? So not a pond, but has the overall shape that I'm looking for. So then I'll go into the texture catalog again. I'll look up liquid. I have a number of different water options. Maybe I want this seawater because I like the way it looks. Drag and drop it. And now I have a pond. So think outside the box when, and just kind of creatively problem solve. Don't worry about things literal, the literal, if you search for pond in the catalog and nothing comes up, that doesn't mean that you can't create that effect, right? I can put this into free movement and kind of tuck it into the ground so it's sitting flush, or I can just bring that height down to 0, whichever works. Okay. Alrighty, so that's what I have for you guys today for some inside tips and tricks that I recommend, or just some easy workarounds. I'll head into the Q&A now and we'll go over your questions. Okay, so Katerina is asking, I would like to know how I can create a curved wall instead of a straight wall to use for my exterior. Meaning I would like to have a curvy bedroom with curved glass windows. Is that possible? Okay, so yes and no. So one thing that's coming soon is the ability to create curved walls in 2D mode, so that when you can apply windows and they'll take that shape. So that is something that's coming. Right now, that's a bit more complicated. So what I would actually recommend for that is use either create new product to create a curved wall, or you can use one of the geometrics here that I used earlier. Actually, you know what? No, I would use create new product. I'm going to correct myself there. Let's click over here. I'll show you quickly how to create a curved wall. And then you can put in a model request for a curved window to match that. Or you can put in a model request if you have a photo of what you're looking for, or if you know like the degree to which that curve needs to exist. You can put in a model request and have the team take care of it for you. Honestly, that might be the better option right now while we wait on that curved wall feature. So if you have a picture of a curved wall with the window built into it, save that to your computer, go to My Models and submit a new request here. You'll see here, I'll just use this as an example. I submitted this request, and then what you're going to do, it's going to ask you to click on different parts of the product or whatever build you're requesting to just specify the dimensions. And then it'll tell you how many model credits it's going to use to create that, to build it out. And the product team at Foyr will build that out by hand for you and place it in the catalog, so that rather than having to build the wall separate and then request a curved window, place the window, it'll just be one entire structure that you can just drag and drop, and then you can resize it in 3D mode, the same as you would any other product from the catalog, okay? That would be my recommendation, because it's a wall that has a window built in. That gets a bit more complex to build out manually, but let me quickly show you how to create a curved wall and create new products so that you know you have that option as well. So right here, create new product. Still 3D mode, but the tools available to me change. So what I'm going to do is click on my rectangle tool, and I'm just going to draw it on the floor, say the thickness of this wall. And now I'm going to give it some height by using push-pull and bring it right up off the ground. You can use push-pull to increase, decrease your thickness, height, so on and so forth. Now I need to create that curve, right? So what I'm going to do is go to point arc. I'm going to click on the edge here, draw out a line, click again, and then as I move my cursor out, you'll see that this nice curve is created. So maybe what I'll do is click right on this corner if I wanted to just curve out like that. And I'm going to go right along this edge here. That would make more sense, right? And there we go. So now you've defined this as two separate areas, right? And you can grab push-pull and then slice this away. I don't know if you've watched any of the other webinars on Create New Product. We have several on our YouTube channel, but I go into detail with a lot of these different tools to create curved items, all sorts of builds. All right. For your particular question, I would go the model request route for now, okay? And also on the community wall here, there was recently a post about all of the features that are coming soon. So from this month all the way through to next spring, we have a ton of new features that are being launched. So do head to the community, here it is, and check it out. So you know that like elevation drawings are coming, all sorts of things. You have to see curved walls, here it is. So February, March, we'll have the ability to create curved walls in 2D mode. Alrighty, let's go back into the Q&A. Sorry, Katarina, I know that wasn't maybe like the best answer for you, but definitely just have the team take care of this for now. It'll be way easier for you. How can I create the custom environment if I have a yard or balcony? Then I would see the wall floating. Okay, so if you have a balcony and you want to take a render looking out from the balcony, that's going to have to do with you still want the wall. You still want the wall to be pretty close to that balcony. If it's too far out, yes, you're going to see that gap underneath. So keep it close to the balcony, and then I would render it as if you're standing on the balcony looking out, not from out looking into the balcony. If you want that view, you're going to be looking more at the exterior of the building, right? So if I had a balcony here, I could still have, let me see if I can quickly do this. A semicircle, we'll create a little faux balcony situation here. Floor docked. I'm going to flip this. Or not. Let's try this. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to move this out, create a quick little balcony situation, and show you what I mean. So if this were our balcony and we placed a wall like right here in 2D mode, looking out, a little bit of space is fine, right? But not floating out here. That's going to be way too much. So keep it close and bring it out further beyond the borders of this balcony. So you're not going to tuck a wall, those little legs in here and here, because that's going to be too close and it will probably show up in your render. So you're going to draw a wall that extends out and then draw your legs kind of outside this space so that you're getting the effect of the light without it popping up. And then when you go into render mode, what tool you're going to use, because if you're standing on the balcony and you back up so that you're not too close, you're going to hit that wall behind you. I'll show you what you use. So I'm just going to work my way down here like I'm standing. I'm going to bring my camera height up. And then I'm going to just slightly back up. And I hit the wall behind me, right? So let's bring our field of view down first. Back up, hit the wall. Clip view. Move this ever so slightly. Clip view, if you back up into an exterior wall when you're rendering, clip view allows you to see through the wall, but still maintain that backed up position, right? So you'll notice the first thing that I did was I brought my field of view down. Field of view, the default is 70, and I find that that's typically a little too high. So if you find that when you take a render of anything, that it looks longer, like the pieces look longer, or maybe the walls look longer, and you're like, that dimensionally doesn't look appropriate, that's just because your field of view was set too high, or maybe it was just at the default, which is a little high for that particular space. So the first thing that I do is bring my field of view down, but it zooms me in. So now I'm going to use the scroll on my mouse to zoom out, and I hit the wall behind me. That's where clip view comes into play. I'm going to move that very slightly and clip view my way through. And then I'll just continue to do that and tap that. So what you might run into, Katarina, is you might just need to increase your camera height so that the bottom isn't showing, right? And so if this were a wall of a, sorry, I don't know if I just went in front of the camera screen there. If this were a wall with a custom environment, you just want to make sure that wherever your camera height is sitting, you're not seeing that little gap down by where your feet would be, essentially, right? But you can still get away with a custom environment that way. If you go too far out, though, it will show regardless. So still keep it close. Alrighty, how do you edit textures? We want to use lighter and darker versions of a texture. Katarina, you can definitely sign up for a masterclass anytime. Let me go ahead and we'll talk about textures real quick. So 2 options for a texture, if I'm understanding correctly. You want to use the same texture in like a different hue. Is that what you mean? 2 things that you can do. Because textures are layerable, I'll use this lamp as an example. You can apply a dark color, right? Let's say I apply this dark blue, and then I upload a custom texture that's light, like this guy, and apply it over top. That blue bottom will kind of like come through in the render and make it a bit darker. But another option that you have here is to simply go to color picker. So when I drag and drop this texture or any texture from the catalog, it's going to automatically bring up the texture properties window. And what you can do is click on color picker. And then you'll see as I move this, you see how that's changing. So you can affect the hue of a texture that way as well. And then you can work your way around the rainbow, so to speak. See? And then we can go, okay, I want it to have that kind of green hue. And there we go. So I still have that texture, but then that new one is popping up. Let me know if that answers your question. That was a good question. Joey Snow, I like that name. How do you step down the floor? How do you step down the floor? Is there a way to build a house with 2 levels? Okay, so I think this is probably what you mean by bringing the floor down, and your answer with the 2 levels, I'll answer both of those together. So in Foyr Neo, let me go to 2D mode right now. One of the things that's coming, multiple floors, is April, May. You'll be able to build multiple floors similar to if you're familiar with, say, Chief Architect, where you just build on top. For now, how Foyr Neo works is you're always building from the ground up. So if you are working on a multi-level space and you need to have stairs, or maybe recently I was working on a house and I was only working on the first floor, but there were stairs that went down into the basement that were open, right? So I needed to be able to create that effect. What you're going to do is accommodate for the height of both floors in your ceiling height in 2D mode. So let me just create a simple square here. So let's say I'm working on first floor and basement. Each floor is 10 feet, 10-foot ceiling heights. I'm going to click on the wall here. First option that comes up is my ceiling height, and I'm going to set this in full wall mode because changes will apply to the complete floor plan to 20. So I'm going to add those. So really, when I go into 3D mode now, I'm going to have these massively tall ceilings in both areas, but we'll work over here. This is both of my floors. And what this is, because we work from the bottom up, this is the basement floor, not the first floor. So now we're going to create a faux floor 10 feet above ground level, and then we can place our stairs and with the stairs going down. I will show you how to do that. So you're going to double click. I'm just going to use my pan tool to kind of center myself here. And we are going to head into create new product in just a second. But the first thing that I want you to do, if this is a stair situation, a staircase situation, find, place, resize your staircase before you go into create new product, because we need these to be accurate. We need this placement to be accurate dimensionally and location-wise for when we draw our faux floor. So I'm just going to place this. Okay, so let's say this is where this needs to be. Now I'm going to go into create new product. Okay. And I'm going to use the rectangle tool to draw out, to just cover the entire floor, right? Now I'm going to angle this to the side. I'm going to be looking at this from the side when I use push-pull. I don't recommend using push-pull looking at something straight on. If I click on this now and I try and pull it towards me, the software is going to get a little confused. Are you pushing it or are you pulling it towards you? But when I turn it to the side, it's very clear which direction I want to go. So I'm just going to give this a little bit of height. And I'll explain to you why that is in a second, and click. And the next thing I'm going to do now is create the cavity for that staircase using my pen tool. So I'm going to grab the pen. I'm going to click on my edge. You'll see it's telling me that I'm on my edge. Perfect. I'm going to click. Let me zoom in here. There we go. Click. And just shape all the way around. Don't worry about it being perfect. That's why we gave this floor a little bit of height. I'll show you where that comes in. So now I've defined these as two separate areas. And you'll see they highlight separately when I grab push-pull. Now I'm going to use push-pull to click on this and just slice it down and slice it away to create this custom cavity. If there's too much gap, what I recommend doing is first click done, click on the floor that we've created, put it into free movement, and bring it up off the ground. Right, now we have our basement and we have our first floor. I can see immediately that I need to move this in. So I'm going to select the floor again and click modify. It's going to initially hide the outside environment. You can unhide the environment right here. And push pull again. And because I gave this a little bit of height, I have this little edge to work with, and I can just click and tuck this in. Oh, that was like totally off. You can click and tuck it in or move it out. There we go. To get it to the perfect size. That's why you always want to have a little bit of an edge to work with so that you can push pull your way around. And that's how you create a second floor or any kind of step down into a space. Work from the bottom up and set your ceiling height immediately. Otherwise, it can be kind of a pain in the butt if you just had like a little bit, like if you had like 2 steps up, like a landing, but you place all of your furniture on the floor, then you have to move everything up off the ground, and that gets kind of tedious. So just keep that in mind when you first start your project, that you have to set the scene for your ceiling height and create like a faux floor to get that effect. Let's see. Okay, I see some stuff in the chat box. Let me check that out. Same for a sunken living room. So you would do to Joey, let me set your ceiling height to accommodate for whatever that drop down is. So say the drop down is 2 feet, you would, and your wall height is 8 feet, you would make your walls 10 feet. Go into create new product, draw out your floor here. And then you can grab offset. And offset creates borders. So you'll see I just clicked once and moving my mouse out, click again. And now I can grab push pull and I can bring this up and create this little situation. We do have stairs in the catalog that you could just, that are like very simple kind of concrete stairs, not like staircases like this, that you could work into all of these edges, or you could build custom stairs. But I say, if you don't have to build it custom, don't give yourself the work. So you'll see these guys here. Drag and drop. Or you could use a floor docked cube if it's just 2 steps. Just use a floor docked cube, resize it, and then clone it and place the second one on top of it. Okay, let me know if that makes sense. Alrighty, let me see. Let me check our chat. And no problem, Katerina. And if you guys do want to schedule a masterclass to delve deeper into something specific, go to your dashboard. And then here you'll see get a free demo. And this will give you access to not just my schedule, but to my coworkers, Bernardo and Hadija. And you can book whatever time works for you, and we'll get on. It'll be a 45-minute one-on-one session. We can share screens and really make sure that we target exactly what you need. Okay. All righty. Okay, Joey's asking, also, when I create walls, they don't always come out at the exact size I want them. How can I snap the interior size? Good question. In 2D mode. So let's say we've drawn out these walls here. As you draw your walls, what you'll find is that as these corners join, the thickness of the wall itself might slightly decrease the interior dimensions. So I think that's probably what you're referring to. You have 2 different options. The first thing that I always recommend, though, is to draw out your entire floor plan and make sure that all of your walls are joined, all of your corners are closed before you start to try and mess around with the interior dimensions. Because if you start to, if you click on a wall here, say, and then you try to manipulate the length here, which is your first option, you can decrease this to say 11. If the walls aren't connected to something on one end, they might start to kind of run a little wonky, like on a diagonal. You'll notice that when I did that, it pulled it in from both sides. So in theory, if this wall was slightly off in interior dimensions, so would this wall, right? So you would simply click on each wall after you've joined them all and then just reset those dimensions to be more exact. And then any kind of weird pulling that happened would correct itself once all of the dimensions were set. So that's option number 1. Just select, go down here and enter the specific dimension. Option number 2, after you draw out all your walls, go up into the settings gear here, turn wall snapping off. Wall snapping is very important to have it turned on when you're actually drawing out your walls. But when you turn it off, say we needed to lengthen this to 11.2 again, we could grab the joining wall and lengthen it to 11.2, and you'll see that increase. When wall snapping is turned on, what will happen when you're using this method of lengthening or shortening your walls, it will snap in certain measurement increments. So you might not be able to go from 11 to 11.2. It might take you from 11 to 11.5. So turning wall snapping off, just like turning object snapping off, gives you that really minute control and basically says to the software, like, I'll take it from here. I don't need you to tell me where this goes. I'm going to tell you where it goes, right? So that's what you're doing there. So just turn wall snapping off, pull it out, and you should be able to get your exact dimensions, either the first way I showed you or the second. Okay, I don't see any more questions popping up. So I will let you guys go. I hope this was helpful. Do check out the other webinars on YouTube to delve a bit more into Create New Product or sign up for a free demo. Check us out on the community, and I'll see you guys next week. Oh wait, something's up in the chat. Nope. Okay, great. So there's a link to the community wall in the chat box. There's also our YouTube channel, a link to our YouTube channel. All of our webinars get uploaded to that channel as well. Okay, so I will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.